The power of thought is one of the most sacred forces you possess. Every dream, every vision, every breakthrough that has ever happened in human history began in the mind as a thought. An idea so subtle, so intangible, yet infinitely powerful. You see, thoughts are the seeds of creation. They are not just idle musings, they are blueprints of reality. But here's the truth most people overlook. Those thoughts are incredibly sensitive in their early stages. Like a sprouting seed, they need a protected environment to grow. If you expose them too soon, they can be crushed by criticism, smothered by doubt, or poisoned by negative energy. That is why you must guard your thoughts, especially your plans, with intense discipline and care. When you tell everyone your plans, you're opening a sacred door that not everyone deserves to enter. Not everyone has the vision to see what you see. Not everyone has the heart to support what you're building. Most people live in fear, they live in limitation. They judge the world not based on what's possible, but on what's familiar to them. So when you speak your plans out loud, you're not just sharing an idea, you're inviting other people's fears, doubts, and limitations into your inner world. And that interference can dilute your energy, shift your vibration, and even cause you to second-guess yourself. You have to understand how fragile energy is in the beginning. At the inception of an idea, your confidence is still forming. Your belief is still taking root. And belief is everything. It's the foundation upon which the entire structure of success stands. You cannot allow it to be weakened by uninvited voices, because every plan you have, every dream you want to pursue, requires an unwavering belief. It's not about hype, it's about energy alignment. When you're aligned, you move, you act, you attract. But when your belief is tampered with, when someone questions your ability, doubts your intentions, or mocks your vision, you start hesitating. You begin to wobble, and that small hesitation can grow into paralyzing doubt if you're not careful. The problem is, most people have been trained to share too early. We're taught that accountability means announcing our intentions to others, that if we tell people, it will somehow force us to follow through, but that approach is flawed. Accountability doesn't come from external validation. It comes from internal commitment. You must commit to yourself in silence. You must nurture your plans with faith, action, and discipline long before anyone else even knows what you're doing. Because once you start showing results, no explanation is needed. Success speaks for itself. But in the beginning, the only voice that should be speaking is the one inside you, the one that knows what you're capable of and refuses to let go. When you talk too much about your plans, you're releasing energy that could have been used to build them. Words have power, yes, but action has frequency. Talking gives you a false sense of accomplishment. It tricks your brain into thinking you're already moving, when in reality, you're just circling the idea with no real progress. Every time you explain your plans to someone who doesn't understand, who isn't on the same frequency, you're slowing yourself down. Their reactions, whether passive or active, stick to you. A raised eyebrow, a sarcastic comment, even silence, it plants seeds of resistance in your mind. And you don't need resistance when you're building something that matters. You need flow, you need focus, you need fire. You also need to remember this. The people you tell your plans to are often dealing with their own unhealed dreams, their own buried ambitions, their own abandoned goals. And when they hear you speak with conviction about something you're about to do, It stirs something inside them. For some, it inspires, but for others, it threatens. It reminds them of what they gave up on. It triggers their inner wounds. And instead of supporting you, they unconsciously try to keep you small, to keep you at a level that makes them comfortable. That's not always malicious, but it's real. That's why you have to stay selective with your words. Not everything is meant to be shared. Not every plan needs a platform before it's real. Keep your energy focused inward. Let your actions announce your journey, not your words. Speak less, execute more. Build in silence, grow in solitude. Master the ability to hold your vision without external applause or confirmation. Because the truth is, no one will believe in your dream like you will. No one can see what you see in your mind's eye. And they're not supposed to. That's your vision. It was given to you for a reason. Not for approval, not for applause, but for execution. So when you feel the urge to share your plans, pause. Ask yourself, is this person capable of holding space for what I'm about to say? Will this conversation water my dream, or will it drain it? Learn to walk quietly with power. Let your results be the noise. There is a powerful principle that most people miss when they begin chasing their dreams. The idea that silence builds energy while talking leaks it. This is not some poetic metaphor. It's a truth that governs how your mental and emotional energy behaves when you're in the process of creation. You see, when you're working towards something meaningful, every ounce of your focus, intention, and attention matters. You're pulling something invisible from the realm of imagination into physical reality, and that process requires immense concentration. When you talk about what you're going to do before doing it, you unknowingly start releasing the very energy you need to manifest that result. When you remain silent, you're cultivating power. Think of it like building pressure in a sealed container. The longer you hold it, the more force builds inside. That force becomes unstoppable when directed with clarity and precision. It fuels your discipline, sharpens your focus, and magnetizes the right circumstances. But when you start speaking too soon, especially without action, it's like poking holes in that container. Bit by bit, the pressure releases. You feel good for a moment because you got to express your intention. But that temporary high often leads to long-term fatigue, because instead of feeding your plan, you spent your energy talking about it. The most successful people understand this, whether consciously or instinctively. They know how to protect their energy and preserve the sanctity of their vision. They don't walk around explaining their every move. They don't look for applause before the work is done. They allow their silence to do the heavy lifting. In silence, you make better decisions. You don't have the noise of other people's opinions clouding your clarity. You're not waiting for approval. You're not adjusting your course based on what others think you should be doing. You're listening to your own inner voice, the one that knows what you're here to build. Talking too much can become a substitute for progress. It's an easy trap. You share your goals, people get impressed, and you feel validated. But nothing has actually changed. You haven't moved forward. You haven't done the work. Yet your brain receives that social reward, the same dopamine hit it gets from real achievement. So you become addicted to talking instead of doing. You trade real momentum for empty words. And worse, the more you speak, the more you invite commentary, suggestions, and distractions that can derail you. Every time you share your plans, you open the door to someone else's energy. That energy might not be supportive. It might come wrapped in subtle doubt, masked criticism, or feigned interest. Even when people mean well, their energy can influence yours if you're not grounded. One misplaced comment can stick in your subconscious and echo in moments of weakness. One offhand remark can become the seed of procrastination or fear. This is why silence is more than just discipline, it's self-defense. It's how you protect the sacred space where your ideas grow. There's also a psychological shift that happens when you keep your goals to yourself. You develop a stronger sense of personal ownership. You're not performing for others. You're not driven by external validation. You're building because you believe in what you're doing. This quiet determination becomes a force in itself. You're no longer seeking motivation from the outside because your fire is burning from within. That inner fire, that quiet, focused, relentless drive, is what separates those who succeed from those who just dream. Silence sharpens your intuition. When you're not busy explaining, you're listening. You're observing patterns, noticing opportunities, hearing that still small voice inside you that guides you toward the next step. You can only hear that voice clearly when you're not drowning it in noise. And make no mistake, the world is full of noise. Everyone has an opinion, everyone has a judgment, but not everyone has your vision. And if you let their noise in too early, it can distort your path. Silence keeps your mind clean. It keeps your goals uncontaminated by other people's insecurities. Another critical aspect of silence is that it builds respect. When you move in silence and then show results, people pay attention. They realize you weren't just talking, you were building. You weren't seeking attention, you were mastering your craft. There's a different kind of power in that. It's not loud, but it's undeniable. People start to recognize your presence without you having to say a word. Your work begins to speak for you. Your consistency becomes your voice, and your results become your message. There's a kind of spiritual alignment that happens when you stop trying to convince others and just start moving. You begin to trust yourself more. You don't feel the need to explain or justify your decisions. You know why you're doing what you're doing. That certainty breeds confidence. That confidence fuels action. And that action creates the results that others eventually admire, often without ever understanding the silent road you took to get there. Silence is not the absence of communication. It's the presence of focus. It's the channel through which you connect with your higher self, your deeper purpose, and your most powerful ideas. When you learn to hold your plans with quiet strength, you become unstoppable. You are no longer scattered. You are not leaking energy. You are channeling it, storing it, using it wisely. You are conserving your most precious resource, not time, not money, but energy. Because everything you want to build in this life depends on how you use it. When you share your plans with others, what you're often doing without realizing it is placing the sacred blueprint of your future into hands that were never designed to carry it. Most people do not operate from a space of unlimited possibility. They operate from a space of caution, fear, limitation, and conditioned thinking. They've been told what's realistic, what's safe, what's acceptable, and they've accepted that programming as truth. So when you come along with a bold idea, a new plan, or a dream that defies convention, it doesn't register with them as inspiration. It registers as a threat to their comfort zone. And what do people do when they feel threatened? They project their limitations onto you. This is one of the most dangerous things that can happen to someone who's just beginning to pursue something great. Because when your vision is in its infancy, It's not yet fully formed. It's delicate. It's easy to shake. And it's vulnerable to outside opinions. The moment you reveal your plans, you give people an opportunity to reflect their own mindset back onto you. And unfortunately, most people are not living in alignment with their highest selves. They're living with regret, with unfulfilled dreams, with years of self-doubt wrapped up in layers of cynicism. So when you say, "I'm going to start this," or "I'm working toward that," their response is often filtered through the lens of their own disbelief. You might hear things like, "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Or "That sounds risky," or "What if it doesn't work out?" And they may sound like they're being helpful. They may say it out of love, but love mixed with fear becomes control. And what they're really saying is, "I couldn't see myself doing that, so I can't see you doing it either." It's not about you. It's about their relationship with possibility. They've trained themselves to shrink instead of expand, and if you're not careful, that energy rubs off on you. One doubtful comment, one moment of hesitation, one emotional reaction to someone else's disbelief can cause you to start second guessing something that once lit your soul on fire. You must understand that people cannot dream for you. They cannot carry your vision. They cannot hold the frequency of belief that your dream requires, because that was never their job. That's your job. Your belief is your responsibility, and the more you share your plans with people who haven't done their own inner work, the more you're handing over the keys to your inner kingdom. Most people don't even believe in their own power, let alone yours. They settle for less. They make excuses. They let fear dictate their decisions, and because of that, they cannot see beyond the limitations they've built around their lives. When you tell them your plans, you're not just giving them information. You're inviting their energetic input. That's a big deal, because energy is contagious. Beliefs are contagious, and someone who lacks belief in themselves will never help you strengthen belief in yourself. It's like asking someone with a broken compass to guide you through unfamiliar territory. They might have good intentions, but their direction will always be off. If you follow their advice, their concerns, their logic, you'll often find yourself walking away from your dream instead of toward it. This is not about arrogance. This is about discernment. You don't need to isolate yourself from the world, but you must learn to be selective with whom you share your internal world. Not everyone is meant to hear your what's next, and not everyone has the emotional capacity to support your elevation. And that's okay. They don't have to. The journey to becoming who you truly are is not a group project. It's an inner calling, a private mission, and that means sometimes you have to move in silence, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. If you look at the people who have done extraordinary things, you'll find that most of them moved differently. They didn't explain themselves every step of the way. They didn't broadcast their intentions to the world before those intentions had roots. They focused on building belief first, proof second, and conversation last. You can do the same. Build yourself up so solidly that by the time people see what you're doing, it's already done. Their opinions can no longer touch you because your results are undeniable. Remember, most people are not trying to hurt you, but their programming is so deeply embedded that they can't help but speak through it. They don't mean to kill your dreams, but they've been trained to doubt their own. And because they never broke out of that mental prison, they don't want to see someone else escape. It disrupts their narrative. It reminds them that they too had a choice, and they didn't take it. So rather than celebrate your courage, they question your logic. Rather than support your fire, they sprinkle water on it. The best protection you can offer your dreams in their early stages is privacy. Give them time to grow in the soil of your heart. Nurture them with belief. Water them with action. Shield them from cold winds of doubt and discouragement. Only when they are strong enough to stand on their own should you let the world see what you've been building. And even then, let your work speak. Let your results talk. Let your presence show what your words never had to say. There is a subtle, almost invisible force that quietly sabotages more dreams than failure ever could. And that is the habit of saying yes. When your soul is screaming no, it's the reflex to agree, to comply, to accommodate the expectations of others, even when it's out of alignment with your own truth. People often don't recognize the weight of those small, misplaced yeses. They seem harmless, harmless to accept one extra task, harmless to agree with someone's opinion to avoid conflict, harmless to go along with what's expected just to keep the peace. But over time, every one of those false agreements becomes a thread tying you down, pulling you away from your authentic path and redirecting your energy toward a life that doesn't belong to you. Each yes that's not rooted in alignment becomes a compromise, not just of your time or your energy, but of your identity. You begin to reshape yourself based on what others want, think, or need from you. You become a version of yourself designed for their comfort, not your growth. And slowly, that version of you starts making your decisions. You don't even realize it's happening. You keep telling yourself you're just being kind, cooperative, or responsible. But underneath, you're losing clarity. You're no longer moving from inner conviction, you're reacting from social conditioning. What most people fail to understand is that saying yes carries creative power. It is not just a word, it is an energetic contract. When you say yes to something, you are giving it permission to enter your life, your schedule, your mind, and your emotional space. That's no small thing, and if you're not careful, your life becomes cluttered with obligations, relationships, routines, and agreements that were never meant to be there. You begin to live a reality shaped by passive choices, not intentional ones. That is how people wake up one day feeling lost, frustrated, or unfulfilled, not because they made one huge wrong turn, but because they made hundreds of small misaligned yeses over time. The problem goes deeper when these yeses are driven by fear, fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of missing out, fear of not being liked, accepted, or validated. In that state, yes becomes a survival tool. You use it to maintain approval and avoid discomfort. But anything rooted in fear cannot create a future of freedom. When your decisions are based on what you're afraid of losing, rather than what you're inspired to build, you're no longer creating, you're protecting. And protection mode is the enemy of growth. You can't step into your higher purpose while constantly shrinking to fit inside someone else's expectations. This is why saying no is not selfish. It is sacred. It is an act of self-respect. It is the boundary line that preserves your energy, your focus, and your vision. When you begin saying no to things that are not aligned, you start saying yes to the future you actually want. Your no makes space for your real yes, but this requires courage. It requires that you stop being addicted to pleasing others, that you stop measuring your worth based on how agreeable you are, that you stop fearing the discomfort that comes with disappointing someone else in order to stay true to yourself. When you start exercising this power, something changes inside of you. Your energy sharpens, your presence deepens. You no longer feel scattered or drained by unnecessary obligations. You wake up with clarity. You move with conviction. You start attracting people and opportunities that match your authentic vibration, not the watered-down version of yourself you used to offer the world. And what's more, people begin to respect you more. They may not always like your decisions, but they will feel your integrity. They will sense that your yes actually means something now, because it's not handed out carelessly. It's backed by intention. Too many people are living fractured lives, their time split between things they never wanted to do, their minds filled with noise they never asked for, their emotions tied up in obligations they didn't create, and they don't realize that it all began the moment they stopped asking, "Is this right for me?" and started saying yes by default. Reclaiming your destiny is not about some grand, heroic act. It starts with a quiet moment of reflection. It starts when you begin checking in with yourself before agreeing to anything, when you pause and ask, "Does this serve my path? Does this honor who I am becoming?" You must get comfortable with the discomfort of disappointing others, because the truth is, you will disappoint many people on the way to becoming who you really are. But the only person you cannot afford to disappoint is yourself. Every time you deny your truth to protect someone else's comfort, you delay your growth. Every time you suppress your instincts to maintain peace, you disrupt your inner alignment, and nothing is worth that cost. In a world where people say yes to everything just to feel needed or accepted, your refusal to comply becomes a revolutionary act. It signals to the universe that you are ready to live on your own terms, that you will no longer bend your life around other people's stories, that you are now the author, the director, the architect, and as you build your life with intention, each aligned yes becomes a brick in the foundation of your true destiny. No longer scattered, no longer diluted, but whole, focused, and free. Your emotional state is not just a background condition. It is the very atmosphere that surrounds every decision you make, every action you take, and every result you attract. Most people treat their emotions like an afterthought, something to be managed or suppressed in order to function. But emotions are not just reactions, they are signals. They are messengers from within, letting you know whether you're in alignment with your vision or moving in conflict with it. And when you're working towards something meaningful, when you have a dream, a plan, a purpose, your emotional state becomes the fuel or the friction in your process. You can't create powerfully from a place of inner chaos. You can't build a life of purpose while you're drowning in doubt, anxiety, resentment, or fear. Negative emotions, when left unchecked, don't just cloud your judgment, they change your frequency. They pull you out of flow, out of faith, out of clarity. They shrink your perspective and magnify your insecurities. Suddenly, small obstacles feel overwhelming. Feedback feels like failure. Silence feels like rejection. And instead of staying committed to your path, you start seeking relief in distractions, validation in the wrong places, or worse, permission from people who don't even understand your mission. Your emotional state becomes the lens through which you view your goals. And if that lens is distorted, you will constantly misinterpret what's happening around you and sabotage what's unfolding in your favor. The process of manifestation is deeply emotional. It's not just about thinking positively or repeating affirmations. It's about aligning your internal environment with the reality you're creating. That means becoming the person emotionally who already lives in that future. If you want to create abundance, you can't be constantly operating from fear and scarcity. If you want to attract respect, You can't be living in self-doubt. If you want to be free, you can't stay emotionally imprisoned by the past. Everything begins with how you feel, not just occasionally, but consistently, because your consistent emotions become your baseline vibration, and your vibration is what shapes your results. You must learn how to take full ownership of your emotional experience. That doesn't mean pretending to be happy when you're not. It means becoming radically aware of what you feel and why you feel it, and then consciously shifting your emotional state when it no longer serves you. Most people don't do this. They wait for circumstances to change before they allow themselves to feel better. They postpone joy until something good happens. They delay peace until the conflict ends, but that puts all their power in the hands of the external world. And when your emotional state is dependent on what's happening around you, you are not in control. You're reactive, fragile, and easily thrown off course. True power is emotional sovereignty. It's being able to center yourself regardless of the noise. It's the ability to choose your inner state even when the outer world is full of uncertainty. This doesn't come from denial. It comes from deep inner mastery. It comes from doing the work of healing your wounds, understanding your triggers, and learning how to regulate your nervous system. Because once you understand that your emotions are not facts but frequencies, you realize you have a choice. You can feel the emotion, acknowledge it, but not become it. You can observe the sadness without becoming hopeless. You can witness the fear without surrendering to it. You can notice the doubt and still move forward in faith. Every negative emotion contains information. But if you don't pause to listen, you'll never receive the wisdom. That anxiety you feel might be telling you you're out of alignment. That anger might be a boundary trying to assert itself. That fear might be the growing pain of expansion. But instead of pushing it down or reacting from it, you must start learning how to sit with it, breathe through it, and extract the message. The more you do this, the more emotionally intelligent you become. And emotional intelligence is the secret weapon of anyone who wants to succeed consistently, because it allows you to remain grounded in vision, even when emotions are high. It allows you to respond rather than react, to lead yourself instead of being led by circumstances. The most successful people aren't those who never feel negative emotions. They're the ones who know how to manage them, transform them, and move through them without losing momentum. They don't pretend everything is fine. They face the storm and stay centered. That centeredness becomes a magnetic force. It allows them to stay in alignment with their goals, to keep their energy clean, and to attract the right people, resources, and timing. When your emotional state is stable, your decision-making improves, your confidence deepens, your actions become more intentional, and your outcomes become more predictable, not because you control the future, but because you've mastered the only thing you ever truly could yourself. So if you're serious about changing your life, about building something extraordinary, about executing your plans with power and clarity, start with your emotions. Not by running from them, but by understanding them. Not by masking them, but by mastering them. Because every step you take toward your future is either being fueled or blocked by your emotional state. And the more you refine it, the more you'll notice things beginning to shift. Not just within you, but all around you. Your world will begin to reflect back the stability, the clarity, and the power you've cultivated inside.